Yeah, we're back, baby. We're back. Wait, before I even say anything, Margie, how you wearing a t-shirt in this weather, bro? Uh,
It's not that hot over here, man. And I had to wear red, so man ain't got no red vest. So obviously we're
um,
talking about a certain club. My man had to represent with the color.
no, I feel you. I feel you on that. I feel you on that. Speaking of club, before we go on to discuss one of the failures in the past 10 years, I've been waiting to discuss this. Yeah, this is Luke, obviously representing the mighty red and the only red that matters. Liverpool, of course. It's international break, so it's gonna be a boring week or two. But you know what? We're gonna brighten everyone's day with this pod. Without further ado, Abdellaini, introduce yourself as always.
Yeah, man, I'm here. I'm here. Obviously, this is just something special. Talking about a particular club, obviously representing Chelsea. But we're gonna be serious right now, though. No banter, no jokes, just straight
What do you
facts.
mean? What do you mean, fam? We're always banter, fam. We're talking about a team that's a failure for the past 10 years, fam. A team that invests in a manager and they just blow 200 mil every single time, fam. A team that allowed an Arsenal fan to go in their pod and say, believe Africa. You know where we're going with this. We're going to talk about Manchester United, fam, the mighty Reds at the time, the theatre or dreams. But all they're doing now is harboring and hosting criminals in their first 11, fam. Bums. But you know what? You're right, Margie. Let's be serious for once. I've got my serious face on. Yeah. So we've decided to break down the structure of owners to the actual DOF, which is the structure, to the manager, to then the players. Am I correct in thinking that?
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna go through each piece by piece to see what has happened over the past 10 to 20 years that's led to this moment. Obviously, the from the owners up to the players, there's been a lack of kind of fluency in that kind of sentence, and you've seen the difference ever since Sir Alex has left because he was doing so many different jobs for them as an institution that when he did leave and David Moyes came in, it hasn't been the same since. And I think they've lacked an identity, they've lacked style of play, they've really lacked kind of what it is to be Man United. They're one of the biggest clubs in the world, top two biggest clubs in England, and they're from top to bottom. They've acted as though they are a mid-table club or even worse through their signings, through the way they picked managers and through the lack of wanting to win things, wanting to win trophies. 10 years without Premier League for Man United. Imagine if we said that about Bayern or a Real Madrid or or a PSG or a club of those ilks that are dominant in their leagues. That Man United were the dominant team in this league. In the Premier League era, they won the most Premier Leagues. They won two Champions Leagues. Um, they've been dominant, and I think the fact that the Glazers has taken them off the stock exchange as well, that's a big issue. The fact that they're not trying to sell them and they're trying to overprice the club into oblivion. I mean, there was two bids. Both of them looked comfortable bids that could have actually improved the team for the future, but the Glazers are just holding on like the last piece of metal, just trying to hold on to, for dear might to the cash cow that is Man United. But uh, we're going to talk about that and so much more.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm glad you mentioned about the Sir Alex Ferguson thing because it all stemmed from him. And I felt like they didn't do things the right way. They didn't. And I feel like with a man that's been in power for that long, just really running the ship, I feel like he should have been there to oversee the next appointment in the new structure. And I felt like when he left at a period where he knew the players were at their sell by date. He left when he knew that they weren't going to be listening to whatever he had to say anymore. And like for me, I felt like if it's not the fact that he ain't a world class manager because he is, but for me, if I was in that position, just like what Klopp's doing right now, just like what Pep's doing right now, for me, I would start thinking about bringing in young talent. because in the next 5 to 10 years, that current squad that you have is going to grow stale and you're going to need to replace them. Why wait until when they're at that period when you can just replace them right now? And I felt like United off and Fergie didn't do that. I felt like he left without having young talents coming through to replace those vital positions. I felt like he left when there wasn't a DOF, which therefore meant that David Moyes had to come in and bring his own, which that DOF probably had the mindset of an Everton, not a mindset of an elite DOF that knows how to run and keep and sustain United at the top. And I just felt like the owners again, um yes, we can say that they lack ambition, but technically they don't, because every single managers that's come in, they've given them 200 mil to spend. So for me, that is still a bit of ambition. But again, the owners don't care, because when you're taking on a club of that magnitude and every single season you're going further and further into debt, it goes to show you that they actually don't care. And the scary thing about this whole situation with the owners is when they do eventually leave, even if they were to get 10 billion for Manchester United, whoever comes in has to also eradicate that debt that they've got as well, which we're probably looking at maybe even close to 15 billion of the money going into Manchester United. Is scary. It's
Yeah.
absolutely scary what's happening at Manchester United. And for me, as a Liverpool fan, obviously, like for me, I'm loving it right now. But then at the same time, me and Marju say this all the time. Like, although we support our teams, we come from an era where we're used to top fours and top fives all the time, like big teams challenging big teams. We're not used to seeing one horse races all the time. We're seeing Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, City always going toe for toe, battling with each other. We're not seeing that no more. And like I want to see a bit of hunger in the Premier League. I don't want it to be a one horse race anymore. I want the likes of United to step back up to where they should be, Chelsea to step back up, Arsenal, Liverpool to step back up. That's what I want. And that's the whole purpose of this conversation today, is just from a rival's perspective, us dissecting United from top to bottom. So you know what? Let's go into the owners, Margie. Obviously,
Mm,
myself, your team, United, and Arsenal have all got American owners, right?
yeah.
And your team is obviously spending the peas. They are showing what a good American owner is. Even along with Arsenal, it's taken them a while, but now they're investing. Liverpool's owners isn't technically bad because they do spend money, but they pick and choose when to spend money. Whereas United's owners, however, yes, they are spending money, but they're spending debt money, which is they're loaning money to then get the players in to then compound the club into further more debt. So they're the worst owners that you can possibly get. And I understand why the United fans are saying, these guys need to go out, the Glazers need to go out, and etc. Now, because we both have American owners, which are obviously two different types, but they obviously come from America, of course. For me, what would you say the Glazers need to do? Do you feel like they should leave, or do you feel like they should stay but use their own money? Because it's clear that they do have the money, but they're just choosing not to spend it. They're just taking out money. So do you feel like they should stay and just remove the debt and use their own money? Or do you feel like it's time for them to go and leave? Like, what do you think? And if that is the case, who do you think United should be owned by?
Um, at this point, I think they should leave because I think they've never shown an indication of wanting to spend their own money. Um, if you look at the American owners we have at this moment, Arsenal's owners weren't spending money for a long time because they were trying to get their other American teams to win. And once they've won those things, now every one of their teams have won a big trophy. So the Super Bowl, the NBA championship, the teams they own have won those big trophies. Now they have to do it with Arsenal. So you can see that they've only recently just started spending their money to improve that. With your owners, it's just a buy-in, sell-in market. So if you never had those players to sell in order to make the money, I don't think your owners would put as much in it as as other owners do. So for me, I think it's kind of a thing of with the Liverpool owners, it's that kind of style, and with our owners, they've had a free hit because the previous owner Roman wiped away the debt, so they base and they have a contract to say that they got to spend this amount of money over this course of years. They're doing it in a much quicker time and they're doing it rapidly, but it's a thing that they are looking at a 5 to 10 year project. With the Glazers, I think the biggest issue is that they never brought in football people. They had Ed Woodward, but he was a businessman, so the business deals that they were making were amazing. Um, top of the line, making the most money in terms of the business sense. But then they were lacking on other stuff, neglecting the stadium is and it's got leaks in it. The toilets are disgusting. The stadium isn't of the quality of a top Champions League level club. It's not there. If you look at like Arsenal Stadium, Tottenham Stadium, nowhere near. Then you look at the academy, lacking spending into the academy to the point where you don't see academy talents come through from United anymore. The last one was Greenwood, but that's a different situation. But very rare are you seeing United talents come through now. And look how much they're selling those talents for 1 million a piece for barely anything. Then they're not recouping on the talents they've created because the academy is terrible. Their under 21s aren't as great as it once was in the past, and they've been overtaken by the likes of us and Man City and other clubs in that department. So when you look at it, I think that the owners need to sell because what Man United needs is that Arab money. They need that big dollar Arab money because the one thing about the Arabs is they want to win. They want to be the best. And that's what Man United needs. They need an owner that has in his mind that I want to make my club the best in the world because that's what Man United should be, right? They've got one of the most trophies in England. Is what one or two difference between you and them at the moment.
I think 4-5 still.
Yeah, like a little difference. Most Premier Leagues in this kind of era, since '92, the most dominant in terms of overall, in terms of leagues and stuff like that. Two Champions Leagues in that time as well. So when you look at that, they could have done so much more, and they've lost their C.
Yeah,
They've lost their C. Man City's overtaken them. How are you allowing a team to not only three-peat but do a treble last season on your head?
it's true.
You were in the final to stop that, and you couldn't stop it because your team wasn't on their levels, not even close. Their B team is better than your first team, and that's what United have become. And for me, that's all down to the ownership and the lack of first of investment, lack of using the money in the right way. It's fine to spend money, but you have to spend it in the right way. Spending silly amounts of money on these players. Like, how many big signings have flopped for them? You look at the likes of Pogba, even more recently Mount. If you look at like Zlatan,
Anthony.
Anthony, like a lot of the
Yeah,
players that they've signed for big money have been failures in the sense of they haven't done what they were meant to do. Then you look at
yeah,
the managers that they brought in, your Mourinho's, your Van Gaals. You give them money the first season, they get top three, top four. The next summer, you don't even give them the money to go to the next level. They're asking for A class signings. You're giving them C and D signings. They're asking for top centre backs. You're giving them Maguire. They're asking for top midfielders. You're giving them rubbish. So the lack of kind of understanding of what this sport is, I think the Glazers need to go because I just think they never brought in the right people underneath them for this to actually make any sense. That's the one thing I would say about Liverpool at their best is when they brought Michael Edwards in. You look at Chelsea now, when they brought in the DOFs, the last two transfer windows compared to the first were so much better, so much more, made more sense in terms of the signings they were making. Even with Arsenal, they have Edu. Some say, oh, he's not that great, but he's brought some gems in like the Martinellis of this world and stuff like that. So you need the structure to be right in order for it to make sense. The DOF and the manager need to have conversations with each other and understand what they want on the same wavelength. And you see, in the case of Liverpool, as the DOF got worse, the team got worse. And Man United never got that DOF at any point. Ed Woodward was the businessman, and he was making silly decisions with his money, overpaying players with 200, 300K a week, not being able to sell those players because they're on such big money. That they're like Phil Jones, the Harry Maguires of this world. Oh man, I can chill on my money. I can stay here, get 6 figures a week. I don't even have to play. I can get 5 minutes in a Carabao and then you go on to next. So I think the biggest issue is not just that they're spending money, but they're spending it the wrong way. And I think you would understand that when a club spends it the wrong way, it leads to failure.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. The scary thing it's not like United fans haven't been protesting. They've been protesting for
Yeah, they have.
years, and like the owners are still there. Like, okay, cool. The one moment the owners were fearful and thought, you know what, let's just put them on a transfer or on the stock market and see what type of bids we're getting. And I feel like they only did that because they saw Liverpool owners do that. Personally, I don't actually think they would have put United on a stock market if Liverpool owners didn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. I think it was just a knee-jerk reaction. I personally feel that the Glazers are going to be there to stay. I personally feel like it doesn't matter the amount of um rioting or protest United fans do. I feel like the Glazers are like, I don't want to say this, but they're like a cancer. Like they're
Yeah.
just gonna spread across the whole of the stadium, the whole of the
Mm,
club. And right now we're looking at the worst period of Manchester United. It's gonna get worse than this because they've waited for time to appoint Eric Ten Hag. They finally got their man and it's still not working. So for me, if you can go through so many managers the way that you do and it's still not working, then you know for a fact what other manager is out there to replace Eric Ten Hag. If he does leave, what manager is out there to replace? Because if you're outside looking in and you've got the likes of Pep that's going to be leaving when Jurgen Klopp leaves in a couple seasons. So both our clubs are going to be more appealing, more attractive than the likes of Manchester United, especially when they know what's going in at United. Say, for example, Pochettino doesn't do well and he continues on a poor form that he is at Chelsea. Like, Chelsea's going to be looking attractive because any manager is going to be looking at Chelsea and be like, you know what? There's some young gems in there that I know I can unlock their talent. And in the next 3 to 5 years, when they're ripe and ready, we're going to take the Premier League by storm, especially when Pep does leave. So the opportunity is there. If Arsenal with Mikel Arteta doesn't work, because this has been a long-term project with Arteta and it's been stop start, it's been up and down. If he doesn't work, Arsenal's going to be looking attractive. There's other more attractive, well-run, efficient clubs in a Premier League that managers outside looking in are looking at and going to be more attracted towards than Manchester United. And that's the scary thing is what's going to happen after ETH if he does get sacked. There's no DOF as well. So like now we'll move on to the DF, and at the end of the day, as Margie alluded to, a DOF is the bridge between the manager and the owner. And at the end of the day, you need that middleman to speak to the managers. You need that middleman to go on a training pitch and see who's on job, who's not on job. Okay, boss man. Okay, gaffer. Who do you want to sell? Who do you want to bring? What positions that needs looking at? What young player do you want? Like, and then you go to the owners and be like, okay, this is the price range. Like, what's the budget that you have for me? Okay, cool. These are the positions that need covering. Is it doable with the budget that you're giving me? Yes or no? No? Okay, cool. Can you potentially increase it to another couple more million so that we can make this happen and make this first team looking good to challenge? Or are you just interested in top four? And then go back to the manager and be like, okay, this is what the owner's saying. Okay, cool. It's not affordable currently, but Are you able to maybe reduce the position, or are you able to think of a different alternative? And then we'll go from there. And then it's the DOF's job to go out to the recruits or the scouts, and you go out and you try and find those gems at the price range. They're the middleman. And it just seems to me like ETH is doing everything at the club, just like Sir Alex Ferguson did, but it worked for Fergie. That's the thing. Right now, it's not working for him. And you can clearly tell that a manager in this modern era shouldn't have that much power, because look at Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp has got so much power, so much say in the transfer. Yes, we've been able to find gems like the Slobosly, like the Cody Gakpos, like the Darwin Nunes. Yes, that's fine. But there have also been other players who are just not good enough, like the Takumi Minamino, the Endo, the Kostas Simicas. These guys are just not quality. The Aaron Ramsey that's gone on loan after you signed him to try and cover Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back. That he's an example of, you shouldn't give a manager too much power. And the same things happen with ETH. And Margie always likes to banner about it all the time about Eric Ten Hag always goes to like the Dutch league to get his boys, bringing
Yeah,
back the
Dutch
click,
ballers. Yeah.
bringing back the click. Do you know what I mean? And it's like you can tell that like he has no knowledge outside of that. And like, you know, like the players that's come in, like Margie's rightfully said, the players that's come in, it's just not been working. And I'm eager to find out your opinion, on who the potential DOF should be, because they've looked at Edwin van der Sar and he's turned them down. But from my knowledge, I think he's currently on a sabbatical because obviously there's been a passing in the family. But if he were to leave, would he be someone that you'd think would be good for the job? They were looking at Rio Ferdinand a couple years ago. Hell, even Gary Neville knows his stuff. I don't see why he shouldn't be a candidate. What's your thoughts? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's plenty of names out there. I mean, even like if the owner is ambitious enough, you can even go for Michael Edwards. He may want to work at like a club of that level. Because the thing about Man United is that they make so much money that any DOF would be able to work with the budgets that they're kind of given. Like it's easy to find the gems. You just have to create the scouting network and stuff like that. And I think the thing about ETH and Sir Alex Ferguson is in Sir Alex Ferguson's era, it was easier because you can go to a little team, get their best player, and get him for cheap money, and then move. Like you can get the best of the British of the English league. Like you can get a real Ferdinand for 20, 30 M's. Nowadays, a real Ferdinand's going for 200 M's and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
It's
So
true.
it's a lot harder to buy off other English clubs because of the amount of money that's in the league. So you have to look in Europe, and that European market's wild. You never know what you're gonna get. Sometimes you're gonna get guys that are gonna be able to adapt. Some guys aren't, and you need that bridge that Edwin van der Sar, Gary Neville, Rio, any kind of guy that has the time to look around Europe and around the world to see talent. You just need a guy that has good talent ID and has a sense of what it means to be a Man United player. So for me, Edwin van der Sar would have been the perfect for it because they work together well at Ajax, and he can find hidden gems not in the Dutch league but just elsewhere as well. And I think you just need a guy that has contacts across Europe, in essence, because the French league is looking really good for talent. The Dutch league looks good for talent. Brazil's got a lot of talented gems as well. So it's just about finding the right fit. And the thing with ETH and with Ten Hag and stuff like that, I think because he's so limited in the players that he's looking at, when you bring them in, a lot of them ain't gonna work in the Premier League because you can't just go from one straight league to here and say it's all gonna work. They looked at a Timber and he worked for the first couple games for Arsenal, but sometimes guys aren't gonna work. So you need to look outside of just one league and one kind of style of footballer, especially and the other thing about the style of play that he's playing is a lot more negative compared to the style that he was playing at Ajax. And to be honest, he wanted guys that he knew. He wanted the guy at Barcelona, what's his name? what's his name again?
Frankie De Jong.
Yeah, Frankie De Jong. Some of his first tier signings, he didn't know alternatives to them. He didn't know
Yeah,
alternatives that a DOF could have found. Maybe you can't get a De Jong. Maybe you can get the second, third best guy that has similar attributes, and you can look around that the teams that do have DOF have scouting networks have actually look at these talents. They're thriving. Your Bryans are thriving. Your Man Cities are thriving. The smaller teams are thriving because they're able to get these gems, build them up, sell them on, and then buy some more gems. And you can see it that those kind of teams are progressing up the league. So I think for Man United, I think it's just I just finding the right fit and being able to give them the right amount of budget to make that happen. But Man United need to do a whole rebuild. They need to get rid of a lot of players in their club. A lot of these players aren't Man United worthy, and you can see it from the situations with Greenwood and Anthony. You can see it from the Sancho situation. Obviously, as a manager, you can't be going out a player that wasn't even playing about training. We're talking about practice, practice. You know, talking about practice. You know what I'm saying? And then he come in rebuttal on Twitter. Like that shouldn't happen. That should be an internal thing. At a club that's working well, those issues are sorted out internally. No one it never sees the light of day. And that's the issue is that you got a lot of players there that aren't good enough for the club, aren't built to be in that kind of atmosphere. And I think you can see it from the players to the manager, the lack of anything in the middle in terms of the board level, that it's just a mess. And you can see it on the football pitch. None of the
yeah,
players on that pitch actually corresponded with each other.
yeah, yeah. It is true. Then they're not, and uh, the thing. Do you think Eric Ten Hag is the right appointment? Because personally, I feel like he is. I just feel like if he had a DOF, I reckon he would have been. I'm saying would have like he's gonna get sacked now, but he would be a good appointment for them if he had a DOF. What do you think? Before I give my thoughts in it, like what do you think?
In terms of a manager, he's a quality manager. I just think the players he brought in don't fit each other. You got an Onana that's there to play the ball out, but you don't have any defenders that are good with their feet outside of that, outside of Martinez and what's his name,
Varane.
Varane. But when you look at the backups, they're not good with their feet. Maguire's terrible. Evans, come on, he's a 35-year-old pensioner. Sally's still waiting for the high. And then you look at the wing backs. Shaw isn't good enough. Wan-Bissaka definitely isn't good with his feet. So every time it goes to Shaw or to Wan-Bissaka, that's a press trigger. Teams see that easy lunch money. Then you can't get out from the back passing if you don't have guys that are comfortable with with the ball to feet. So Onana doesn't make sense to that defense. Then you look at the midfield, unbalanced as hell. Casemiro, Fernandez, Mount does not work. Then you look at the attack, unbalanced as well. The right side isn't doing anything. Rashford only works on the left. No real number 9. It's like if you look at the layout of that team, the lack of kind of thinking and planning behind how that team was created and getting rid of players. That's the one thing I like about my owners is that they got rid of players that they didn't need. They were ruthless in terms of selling, and Man United need to be ruthless in terms of who they get rid. You can't be doing a contract for the boys of Johnny Evans and stuff like that. Phil Jones was at the club for 12 years. In the last 3 seasons of his contract, he played 4 games and was wearing the number 4. Man said, Varane, you can't hold that number 4 because that's my number. Man saying that to Varane, and people are allowing that. I would have ripped that shirt off and kicked him out the room and talking about, I'm keeping the number 4 shirt. And he doesn't even play. That in itself, the lack of respect for the club itself in terms of that, it just does. And overpaying these players, they need to rebuild that whole wage structure, the team, the whole thing. I, I would burn it to the ground and rebuild again, and let Ten Hag have a DOF that can just help him rebuild it in his own image. Because you got players from Mourinho, you got players from Van Gaal, you got players from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer who had no clue. So I don't know why those players are still there. 4 or 5 managers of worth of players, 3, 4 from each, and it doesn't work. And you wonder why they're getting dominated by teams. They're barely playing any good football. They're lucky enough to get the points they do get, and it's just like over the course of this season, I don't see Man United going anywhere under Ten Hag with this team. It's unbalanced. There's no really rotation that you can make sense of. It's a hard job. Ten Hag's a great manager, but it's a hard job.
Yeah, it is a hard job, and the funny thing is, Mourinho made it look easy when they got second, and Mourinho was honest in what he said and said, this team is just it's not going anywhere. I need X, Y, Z windows to rebuild it. And everyone laughed at him and thought, you're mad. You literally just got second. Like, what are you on about? And look now, like, there's a reason why he's one of the GOATs, why he's a genius in and a student of the game, because he knew where United were going to be from the time he left till now. And it's evident. At the end of the day, you brought in the managers, you brought in Moisey, that didn't make sense. He was just an apprenticeship, hand down. There was no experience there at the highest level. He didn't really do anything significant at Everton. Let's be real. Like it was just he was very comfortable at Everton. Yes, they managed to get top four once, but what else did he do to prove that he deserved that big job? Nothing. They just played it safe going with David Moyes. And at the end of the day, since when did Alex Ferguson even have the IQ of what a world class manager is supposed to look like? So for me, that was just one of the boys type of appointment. Then you got Mourinho, who did it well, who knew and understood. The only problem with Mourinho is he thought that his personality his personality rubbed a lot of the players the wrong way. And I felt like in this modern era, you can't continue on how you were at Chelsea back in the 04, 05s. Back then, you had leaders at Chelsea that could obviously, they had the thick skin. They could be like, you know what, Gaffer, you're right. Whereas this new generation of footballers, they like to be sugar coated. They're not tough men. They're not grown men. They're not
Yeah,
real men.
hug
You
that
know,
night and that.
exactly, bro. Do you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah,
with Mourinho going in there with that type of personality, he probably needed to change with the times. And at the end of the day, you don't want to change. You want to be you. You want to be your authentic self. But in this line of work, sometimes you have to put your pride aside and just adapt and be different when it comes to the players that are there. Some players in that United camp probably deserved a hard shoulder, but then there's other players in that camp that deserved a hand round the shoulder. But he isn't that type of manager. So for me, I just felt like where he went wrong wasn't necessarily the style of play or whatnot, but it was just his personality and it just didn't work. Then we moved to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We won't go there because my man was just doing counter-attacking Shalar and Chill. But we now move to Eric Ten Hag, where this is a guy that you was courting for time, just like Arsenal with Mikel Arteta. Everybody was raving about ETH's football. They were a standout in the Champions League that year, and they blew so many teams out of the park. And like now he's come here and it's sort of as if he's lost his identity, whether it's because he's trying to, because of the players that he has, he realized that they don't have the capabilities to adopt his style, so he's trying to do a mix and match of trying to appease his players but at the same time trying to adopt his style, and it's just not working. And I feel like where Eric Ten Hag has failed is just the fact of, as we've already said, the IQ of learning about talent outside of his division is evident. And I feel like if he did have a DOF, or if he had an assistant that was in his ears and be like, "Are you sure this is the right appointment?" Maybe he would have second guessed it, because these signings over the years hasn't made sense for a while now. Raphael Varane, He should have been there 5 years ago when they were courting him. He's there now. It's a bit too late. Oh, Nana is the right appointment, but at the same time, because they're not playing the type of football that they should do, it's a bad appointment. Martinez doesn't make sense to me. Diego Dallo, he's a liability at the back. Aaron Booker C. Wan-Bissaka, he's not an attacking fullback. He's defensive. So naturally, in a modernized game where you're expected to play attacking fullbacks right now, he should either be playing for a defensive team or learn on the training pitch how to actually attack. You've got Casemiro. He's aged. My man's aged. He's gone from a good CDM last year to his legs running to the ground like Fabinho. He's in that Fabinho arc right now. Like, he can't deliver at CDM no more because he's had to carry that midfield. You went and signed Mason Mount, which doesn't make sense because he's similar image to Bruno Fernandes, so they're not compatible in that midfield. It's sort of like a Gerard de Lampard English type of midfield. It's just not working. Marcus Rashford's better on the left, but then at the same time, you're not getting him involved in a game. So why not play him through the middle and bring on Garnacho, who's proven that he's your main live wire when it comes to attacking a defender 1v1? He's probably your best player. So why are you not starting him? You've still got Martial, who's just there, and then you got Anthony. He's just a lost cause. You got Jaden Sancho, who's made the worst career move that he could have made in his young career, and it's just not working with this manager. I don't know whether he's decided to go after these players or someone in their scouting department, but I just feel like if he had to go back time to when he first joined till now, I would like to think that he would have done things differently. And like for me, I just feel like if he had that structure ahead of him to challenge him mentally, to challenge his knowledge and IQ, I reckon we would be seeing a different ETH right now. And to be honest with you, it's sad because you never want to see a manager's credibility come under threat, especially when they've done so well to build their credibility up. And I just feel like after this, who knows, if he were to leave and go to an actual footballing type of club with a DOF, maybe he might ball out. But I just feel like right now his credibility is just shot to shit right now. And I feel like he's running out of ideas to try and remedy and rectify the situation that he's in. And it's just not helping when you've got players in your team who just don't suit your style or who are toxic and they're not working well in training. So the cancer is just festering. Then you don't have a DOF above you. Then you're battling with owners who don't want to, who wants to stay, but they want to poison the club and put the club further more in debt. It's just a vicious cycle. But it is what it is. I'm hoping he can come out of it, but it is what it is. What can I say? But the buck stops with the players at the end of the day, and that's who we're gonna finish on right now is the players. And you know, Margie briefly discussed it already. I've discussed it already, but where do you think the rebuild should be, Margie?
The rebuild. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I'd say you probably have 3 or 4 players that I would keep, and the rest can go, in my opinion. Um,
Who's the 3-4?
maybe four. The goalkeeper can stay. Oh no. I would keep the 2 centre backs as the main partnership in Varane and Martinez. Um, Now Casemiro can go. Amrabat can stay. Amrabat, the new signing, I think he can be a quality DM. Fernandez can stay. Rashford can stay on the left, and that's about it. That's about it. The rest of the team needs to be changed. I don't think Mount as a bit as an option of off the bench maybe can stay as well, because I still think he has some qualities, but him and Bruno do the same job. I think Ericsson off the bench okay, but in terms of the left back, right back, that needs to be all replaced. In terms of centre mids, they need a couple of centre mids, and then the right wing. You've had problems with all your right wingers pretty much. Anthony, that situation, the Sancho situation. So you need right wingers. You need and striker Hoyland is new, so I'm not going to judge him yet. but he needs an experienced guy ahead of him to show him the way, kind of thing. So they probably need about 10, 11 players and get rid of about 10. They need a whole kind of like
Chelsea
a bomb,
rebuild.
yeah, a Chelsea rebuild in the sense
Mm.
of I think they have so many players that need to go. The only issue is because a lot of these players are on high wages, they might have to get some of them out on like loans or offer to pay certain part of the wages as well to get them out, or just rip up the contracts. Like if you got, let's just say this imaginary world, you got new owners. If I'm the new owners, I don't have no losses when it comes to these players. I'm treating them like they're all on zero. I'm doing what Chelsea did. Come in, no remorse. Whoever I don't think is good enough goes. Hell, I might even get rid of all of them if I'm being honest, because like the likes of Varane is getting older now. Martinez looks good. Amrabat, I don't know. Hoyland, I don't know yet. Rashford, Rashford and Onana are the only two guys that I would stick I'd say are certain to stay in the first team. The rest of those guys, it's like it's it's so much to do. Like you can't really fathom how much they have to do when you actually look at the players and look at the style of play. It depends on what Eric Ten Hag wants. But if he wants to play out from the back, the fullbacks need to be improved. The midfield balance needs to be checked. They need a box to box midfielder. They need a right winger, and they need a number nine they can trust. And then they need to refine the bench options. Johnny Evans and Maguire shouldn't be on your bench. Your bench shouldn't be filled with youngsters. Your bench should be filled with guys that are just as good or same level as the guys on the pitch. You're Man United. You should have 211. You should have 22 guys that you can say day in, day out, can get onto that pitch and do a job. And I can't even, and they probably only have 6 or 7 that can do a job. The rest of them are ass. So, yeah, it just needs a clear out. It needs just to extinguish, fam. They need to get the water, the hose, just wash them all out. Go on, move on. You know what I'm saying? Get a broom, brush them all out, because like there's too many guys that shouldn't be there. Like if you look through their squad right now, I'm gonna go to their squad, and I can't even when I look at the players on their list. So they got this Turkish goalkeeper, Yande. Don't know about him. Lindelof, not good enough. Amrabat new, so I ain't gonna say nothing. Maguire, not good enough. Martinez, okay. Mount, okay. Bruno, okay. Marshall needs to go, injury prone. Hoyland, yeah. Malacia, iffy at best. He's not really that great, like average at best. Then you look at Ericsson, they got Regalon on loan who's going to be gone. Amad Diallo, like Garnacho, like a couple youngsters, but not there yet. Casemiro passed it, Varane passed it, Delo not good enough. Anthony, a Beyblade spinner, Tom Heaton, just one of the lads. Luke Shaw. If Luke Shaw's fit and healthy, he's a good left back. But more time than not, he's on the pies and mashing them thing there. Man's doing man's got the big belly gut and he's rubbish. Um, Onana, okay. Sancho needs to move on because he can't. I don't think he's gonna stay in that environment, especially if Ten Hag's still the manager. Palestri, Wan-Bissaka, Van der Beek's got to go. Like he's injury, and then Evans, and then McTominay. I've even forgot about McTominay, fam. McSauce, McMayo, McChicken, McFries. Mister McDonald's himself. How is he still there? They got
He's
rid of
injured.
Fred. Oh no, man! Why, rip up the contract player and get rid of him. Like, there's so many guys that they need to. That when I read out that squad, did you think of that as a Man United squad?
No, I didn't. But I'm sort of indifferent though. Like for me, there's only two players that should remain in that squad, and that's Onana and Rashford. For me, I feel like Onana, as much as I grill him, I feel like if you are trying to play that possession game, I feel like he's a good goalkeeper for that. And Rashford is just basically because he's come through the youth academy. He understands what United is all about and he bleeds it. He bleeds red, and you can tell. Like you can tell the passion. You can tell every time he gets on the pitch, he wants to win. Even in that game against Arsenal, the way how he celebrated when he scored, like you can tell he really wanted to win that game. And I feel like that captain's appointment shouldn't have been given to Bruno. It should have been given to Marcus Rashford personally. I feel like you can't be given a captain's armband to a player that doesn't want to run, that doesn't turn up to big games. He only turns up to small games. He doesn't want to track back. He doesn't want to defend. This is the complete opposite to Marcus Rashford. If you've looked at the stats, he scored 6 goals given the time that he's debuted till now. He scored 6 goals against every single big team in a big match. Against Liverpool,
Wow,
against Chelsea,
that's
against City,
terrible.
against Tottenham, against Arsenal. He's the only player in that team that has done that. For me, although that is terrible, for me, it just goes to show you that when it comes to big games, he does step up. He does. And sometimes you need that in a captain. Does Bruno Fernandes step up when he's on the pitch? Because he didn't step up against Arsenal, that's for damn sure. Every time when he plays, he's just a liability. You might as
Yeah,
well just be playing 10 men. And for me, I would get rid of everybody. Now, in terms of the defense, I would move Martinez out of centre back and put him in CDM because he can play CDM. He's played there for Ajax. So I would put him in CDM. Varane, I would get rid of. But if you are going to keep him, then I'd bring someone else who's going to be strong next to him. Someone like a prime Koulibaly, a prime Van Dijk, or I don't know who else, a prime Hummels. I don't know, a prime Delit. Delit would be a good appointment there. I feel like you need someone strong to cover Varane because I feel like Varane's at an age where he's that type of guy where he's a Sergio Ramos now. He's reading the game. He's no longer running to track back. He's reading the game and making sure he's in vital positions to try and tackle, just like a Thiago Silva, basically. And as you rightfully said, the fullback positions need to be rectified because none of them men are good on the ball. None of them men know how to be a player. None of them men know how to cross. None of them know how to do anything. And I feel like that's an area that needs to be addressed. The midfield is a liability, and we say it time and time again. Games are won and lost through midfield, and it's just easy to run through midfielders. It is. You don't have the defensive acumen of Bruno Fernandes. Casemiro's legs are gone. Mason Mount runs around like a headless chicken. There's no stability in that midfield, and that is another area that needs addressing. Again, wide areas and striker. Marcus Rashford could potentially play through the middle because he played well under Mourinho. He had his best season under Mourinho. So it's not like he can't play there. I just feel like you need to instill the confidence like Mourinho did to tell him to go out there and play. So I feel like he can play there. I just feel like the managers that he's worked with just haven't unlocked or given him the tools to go out and do what he does best. But hypothetically speaking, just speak on reality right now, though, is he's playing on the left. That's fine. But you need to get your best players on the ball. You need to get your best players in that 6 yard box. And I don't feel like United are doing it. Then you got Ganacho, who's a live wire that knows how to be a player. And I feel like for me, he should be starting games. Ganacho should be. He is. Because every time when Ganacho comes on, he's by far your best player. He's trying to make an impact. He's trying to make something happen. Then you got Anthony. We won't go into that. And then you got Jadon Sancho, who, as I've said continuously, that I feel sorry for. And then you got Martial, who's an injury prone guy who's rarely played games. He's had more sick notes than goals. And then you got a young striker in Hoyland. So I just feel like for me, Yes, Marjube is correct. The whole squad needs rebuilding, but I only personally, for me anyway, I only see two players that deserve to be in that team, and that's it. And the worrying thing about this United squad, which I will close from my side anyway, the worrying thing is that they've spent so much money over the years bringing in these signings and bringing in the incorrect signings that whoever comes in after, there's a worry that the Glazers might not give them money because they've wasted so much money. But then there's also a worry that even if they were to get rid of all of these players, it's going to take a hefty amount to rebuild that squad. So essentially, they have to go through at least 5 to 10 years of doing a one in, one out policy. They have to, because there's no club that's going to spend their wages, and there's no club that's going to buy the asking price that United are going to put on their head, because they know that these guys are dead. So they're stuck in a conundrum where they can't sell the guys because of their wages and the players are dead food, but then they can't buy players because if they do, they're getting scammed paying 80 M's like they did for Mason Mount and 75 M's for Hoyland, who's only scored 6 goals in the league. So they're getting bumped. So it's a vicious cycle at United. If they really want to rebuild that squad, we're probably looking at 1 billion to rebuild that whole squad. Do we really think that these owners are going to spend 1 billion to rebuild this squad? It's not going to happen. United didn't even go out to sign a centre back, which is what they needed. They didn't go out to sign a CDM because they ended up loaning him. So if they're struggling to get those positions, these owners definitely ain't spending 1 billion, which means that ultimately we're looking at this United team drifting and falling back further and further away from the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Man City. And we're probably looking at an era now where in 5 to 10 years' time, United are going to end up being in mid table like when Chelsea was before Roman Abramovich came. And we're probably going to be looking at the likes of Newcastle being a much more powerhouse than United are. That's what we're probably looking at. And that's probably what's going to happen. And again, as I said, from a Liverpool fan perspective, it's fantastic to me. But at the same time, as a football fan in me, it's sad to see such a dominant club in the prime of their lives under one of the most, if not the best manager in world football be destroyed and capitulate the way that they did. No one foreseen United falling like this. We probably was thinking maybe 5 years, the max, but they'd get it right. It's taken them 10 years or more, and they don't look like they're going to be coming back anytime soon. And yeah, I'm just going to close on that note from my side anyway. Like, yeah, it's scary hours. Watch this space in the Premier League. We're probably not going to see United make top four, which my prediction was that they wouldn't anyway. And yeah, this is Luke signing out from my side. Marjib, you say your piece.
Yeah, yeah, I do agree. Like, if they keep the same owners, if they don't sell the club eventually, they will go to mid-table and just be a club looking for a Conference League spot. And the thing is, there's clubs out there that are in and around it now. So you got Newcastle that got new Arab money. You got Brighton that are doing well, selling players, buying players, the new Southampton kind of style team. Got Tottenham looking good. You got Villa and stuff like that. So yeah, man, it's getting more and more difficult to be a top team in this league. And I think if they keep those owners and if they keep the way they're playing and the style, I think it's just gonna get worse before it gets better. And yeah, they just need new ownership sooner rather than later. And yeah, it will take 1 billion for them to get to where they want to be. Maybe even two. They might even need 2 billion. And when the club is bought, they need to rebuild the academy, rebuild the stadium, rebuild the trust with the fans, do a lot. So you're talking about what 20-25 million altogether if an owner comes in for everything. If you're looking at like a whole totality of what that club needs right now to, to get where they want to be, it's gonna be a long year for United and a longer time. And it's already the thing about it is they're at the stage where they're in denial of what they are, because 10 years without a league. I remember when Arsenal fans were like that, thinking, "Oh, next year's gonna be our year. Next year's gonna be our year." You know, you get a top two, top three finish, get a cup here and there, and you're thinking, "Yeah, man, this manager's gonna cook." It doesn't happen. 10 years turn to 15, 15 turns to 20, 20 turns to 30, real quick, real quick.
Hell,
Ask,
look
ask,
at
ask.
Liverpool, bro.
Yeah, exactly. Look at Liverpool before Klopp. Look at Arsenal right now, nearly 20 years without a league, and still struggling to do it. So Man United could be the next one waiting 20, 30 years for a league. And it's happened to every one of our clubs in terms of like league titles. Like my club wasn't always big. I'm just lucky to be alive in the period where it was. But you look at Tottenham, so many years without winning anything. You look at the likes of Newcastle, so many years without even being in the Champions League. They're doing something new this season. So maybe it's the time that Newcastle. I thought Newcastle was gonna replace Tottenham in the top six, but they might replace Man United at this rate. So I'm gonna finish on that point. Yeah, there's a new United in town. Up the Geordies.
And on that note,
Uh,
hold that United.
yeah,
We out,
man.
baby.
We out. Peace.